Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On this channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today I have another book review for you and we have done it! If you're not new to my channel, you'll know I'm trying to read the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett in order. And I had a goal for this year to reach the Hogfather for December, and today's book review is The Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. I did it! I read The Hogfather for December 2023, so I'm really happy I finally read it. I have actually done this the wrong way around with The Hogfather because a movie came out of The Hogfather when I was in high school before I was reading the Discworld series in order. So I've actually watched the movie of this before I read the book, and I do think that changed my perception of the book slightly. But we'll get into that as we go through this review. Before we get into that, don't forget if you like what you see to subscribe to this channel. Your continued support means a lot, so thank you guys so much. As always, with my book reviews, I'll read you guys the blurb first. It's the night before Hogswatch and it's too quiet. Where is the big jolly fat man? Why is death creeping down chimneys and trying to say ho ho ho? The darkest night of the year is getting a lot darker. Susan, the gothic governess, has got to sort it out by morning, otherwise there won't be a morning ever again. The 20th Discworld novel is a festive feast of darkness and death, but with jolly robins and tinsel too. As they say, you'd better watch out. We have a review on the back from Sunday Times which says, has the energy of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and the inventiveness of Alice in Wonderland. It has also an intelligent wit and a truly original, grim and comic grasp of the nature of things. You know we would have liked it. The first thing I do want to point out is, like, look at this cover. For anyone who has read the Discworld series, what have they done to Susan? Seriously. I have seen interviews with Pratchett where he does generally joke about the book covers, especially the originals, of how his characters always change what they look like and the women always end up in less clothing, even though he never writes them that way. And Susan in this has blonde hair and a blue dress. We all know she has black and white hair, basically like Cruella de Vil, and like hell is she going to be seen dead in a blue dress. Really? But anyway, the cover aside, we all know what Susan looks like, so we'll just ignore that. As always with my book reviews, I will do spoiler free first, and then I'll give you a spoiler alert to warn you when there may be spoilers in the second half of this video. I'll give you a time skip to so you can see my overall review of this book. Now, as I said at the very beginning, I watched the film of this book before I read the book. This wasn't on purpose. I watched it years ago in high school, but it also after that point did become a yearly watch for me and my partner. Every winter we watched The Hogfather together, so I've got it memorized, and it did influence my review of this book, mainly in the middle section, and you'll see why. First of all, I have a question for anyone who has read this book, and this isn't a spoiler. There is a main character called, and I'm gonna say it wrong, and this is why I have the question. He's referred to by everyone in Discworld as Mr. Tea Time, and that is how the name is spelt. In the book, he then pronounces his name as Tia-Tim-E, but in the movie, his name is Tia-Tame. I'm presuming it's Time, as that's what the book says, but I do also know that Pratchett is always in the movies of the Discworld, so he was there, so I presume he'd correct them if that wasn't right. So please comment down below, is it Tia-Tame or Tia-Time? I have a couple of quotes for you guys first. So first quote is page 11. Something began when the Guild of Assassins enrolled Mr. Tia-Tame, who saw things differently from other people, and one of the ways that he saw things differently from other people was in seeing other people as things. Later, Lord Downey of the Guild said, we took pity on him because he'd lost both parents at an early age. I think that, on reflection, we should have wondered a bit more about that. So Mr. Tia-Tame is in the Assassins Guild, and again, it's just a great Pratchett way of showing you about Tia-Tame's personality and not telling you about it. The fact that who knows what happens to his parents. Page 18. Susan says, don't get afraid, get angry. This is a quote that I adored in the film, and I'm happy to say that throughout this book it keeps my favourite quotes from the film in it. So the film, well, that's the other way around, isn't it? The film keeps the quotes from the book, and they're all my favourite quotes, and they're all in here, and they're all in the film, and that made me really happy. The Susan says, don't be afraid, get angry is one of my favourite sort of mantras in life that I really try to embody, and I need to embody better because I get scared and I should really channel the inner Susan or Nanny Ogg. All those characters who are these powerhouse women who aren't afraid of anything because they're the scariest thing out there really need to channel. And I just love how Susan says, don't get scared, get angry. Mwah. Wonderful. Page 21. The doors are locked. The windows are barred. The dogs do not appear to have woken up. The squeaky floorboards haven't. Again, this is one of my favourite quotes from the book and the film. It's the squeaky floorboards haven't, which makes me laugh every time. He's playing on the use of the English language, because you would normally say this, that the floorboards haven't squeaked, but you can't deny that the squeaky floorboards haven't makes sense and is grammatically correct, even though it sounds wrong. And I just love that. It's just great. Page 93. It's you, isn't it? She said. Squeak. Yes, it is. You're sticking your arms out like a scarecrow. And you've stuck a little star on your scythe, haven't you? The death of rats has appeared and he's trying to look like a Christmas ornament, and I just find that the cutest thing ever. If you guys haven't seen on one of my Terry Pratchett book reviews, our friend Connie made us the best Christmas ornament, which is the death of rats. Look how cute they are. I'll put a link below to her artist channel if you are interested. She also does standard Christmas ornaments with robins on, holly and things like that, and other artwork as well. But she did this on commission for us of the death of rats, and it's the first ornament. Look how perfect she got it. So I'll put a link below to their channel. But the death of rats has appeared, and you know I'm happy. I have an ornament of this thing. I'm glad they're there. Compared to the movie, the death of rats actually plays a much bigger role. In the movie, they just come out to collect a dead rat and then disappear. In this, they're there throughout, which I thoroughly enjoyed. This is the last quote before spoiler zone. I believe we're okay still for spoilers, but page 185. It's the expression on their little faces I like, said the Hogfather. You mean sort of fear and awe and not knowing whether to laugh or cry or wet their pants. Again, this is one of my favourite quotes from the movie and from the book. The Hogfather talking about their favourite part about having the kids come to sit on their knee and talk about Hogswatch, and Albert being like, they don't know if to wet their pants. It's just, I love it so much. Another thing, and this is what I'm going to say, spoiler alert. If you haven't read this book, or you don't want to have any spoilers, then skip to this time here. If you have read it or you don't mind spoilers, then stay tuned. Spoiler alert. So with the quote on page 185, A, it's hilarious and one of my favourite quotes. But B, we know from the blurb already that the Hogfather is Death. So Death is dressed as the Hogfather because the Hogfather has disappeared. But in that quote, I did not misread that to you. It said the Hogfather. Death is losing his grip on being Death or the Hogfather. Great foreshadowing there. So in the spoiler section now, page 207. Who were they? Some of the cleverest men in the world, said Susan. And I'm sober, am I? This is the Oh God of Hangovers and Susan when they're in the wizard school, and the wizards, who are supposed to be the cleverest men in the world, are being ridiculous, as they always are. And I just love the sarky comments and how the Oh God of Hangovers says, and I'm sober. Like, if he was drunk, that would have made more sense. Page 247. Their minds are so often involved with deep and problematic matters, he told himself, that their mouths are allowed to wander around making a nuisance of themselves. This is again about the wizards, of how they're supposed to be the smartest men on the Discworld, and yet the stuff that comes out of their mouths and generally how they behave, you really question, is that really being smart? And I just love how everyone around them just seems to try to accept that they're the smartest people on the Discworld, even though they confuse everyone and really aren't smart. Page 282. Jam tomorrow. The jam tomorrow idea is the idea that you're happier when you have something to look forward to than you are if you have a lot now. This is wrong, Death hesitated. I mean, it's right to be happy with what you've got, but you've got to have something to be happy about having. There's no point in being happy about having nothing. I love how this is kind of linking into Vimes's economic theory of the boots. Pratchett really cares about the inequality of wealth, And you can see that in the Hogfather, where Death is complaining about how rich people get a lot of presents and poor people get smaller presents or less of them, even from the Hogfather. And we all know why, because people can't afford so much, of course. Death is trying to say that it's right that people who can afford it give their kids what they can, but also saying how it's wrong that kids from families who have less money get less. I just love how he questions society, and the more of Pratchett you read, the more you see this happening and the more blunt Pratchett is getting. Page 281. Of course, I still hung up my stocking on Hogswatch Eve, and in the morning, you know what? Our dad had put in this little horse he'd carved his very own self. Ah, said Death, and that was worth more than all the expensive toy horses in the world, eh? Skip a bit here. Only grown-ups think like that, said Albert. You're a selfish bugger when you're 7. Again, this is one of my favourite quotes from the book. It's Albert, as a kid, when he was 7, really wanted this massive toy rocking horse that was in a window, and he got stuck to the window because he was looking at it for so long, someone had to unfreeze him, but someone else bought it. But his dad had done the thing that we want all wholesome parents to do. If he knew his son wanted this big extravagant horse and he couldn't get it, so he made him a horse of his own hands, which as adults we're all like, oh, the feels, such a great father. But as Albert says, you're a selfish bugger when you're 7. As a kid, you'd still want that big horse, even though someone had painstakingly made you a horse from scratch. I just love the realism of it. Page 411. Mere accumulation of observational evidence is not proof. This is Death talking to Susan when Susan has to jump onto the boar, and Susan says that you can't jump on a boar will not have her on his back. You just can't do it, and Death's saying basically that just because you've never seen it done and that no one's managed to do it doesn't mean it's proof. It is proof, technically, but I just love how Death's like, no, it's not. And my final quote is page 433. Now, I don't know whether to read you this. It's a whole page, but it is the most wholesome page in this book, and it really gives me the feels. I'm gonna read it. Okay, I'm gonna read it. Bear with me. It's seriously the feels. 432 to 433. Death turned towards the balcony and then seemed to remember something else. He fumbled inside his robe. I have made this for you. She reached out and took a square of damp cardboard. Water dripped off the bottom. Somewhere in the middle, a few brown feathers seemed to have been glued on. Thank you. What is it? Albert said there ought to be snow on it, but it appears to have melted, said Death. It is, of course, a Hogswatch card. Oh. There should have been a robin on it as well, but I had considerable difficulty in getting it to stay on. Ah. It was not at all cooperative, really? It did not seem to get into the Hogswatch spirit at all. Death has tried to make Susan a Hogswatch card, but Death really struggles, and the book really goes into this, really struggles with human things. He really loves humans, he wants to understand humans, he wants to pretty much live like a human, but he doesn't always grasp the full concept. So he knows about a Hogswatch card, and Albert's told him they have snow on them, they have robins on them, but he's taken that literally and tried to put snow on some card and stick a robin bird to it, and then said that the robin did not want to get into the Hogswatch spirit. And again, it's just one of my absolute favourite quotes from this book and film. He tried to make her a Hogswatch card, and he's trying so hard, and it just went wrong. Before we go into the spoiler-free review, what I was saying at the beginning about I watched the movie first, and that definitely had an impact on this book, is that although the writing is great and it's funny, and obviously I loved this book, so I watched this film every year for a reason, but for a Pratchett book, it's quite long, and I read long books. It's not that long. I mean, look at my palm compared to the size of it. It's not, a huge book. But for a Pratchett book, it's quite long. And the middle section really slowed down for me, because that is when Susan and the Oh God of Hangovers is trying desperately to find out what's happened to the Hogfather and what's going on. Now, in the movie, this goes quite quickly, but obviously it takes a while in here. Now, I think if I was reading this as someone who had not seen the movie and didn't know where they were and everything, that would have read a lot quicker, because I would also have been like, trying to work it out. But as I knew where they were and I knew exactly what was going on, I just wanted to get to the juicy action scenes in the Tooth Fairy's castle. I really did. My second thing comparing this to the movie is that they kidnap the Tooth Fairy, which they do in this book. But then she's not talked about basically until the end, and she's only really talked about and used to be a romantic interest to the God of Hangovers. I don't understand. In the movie, it made sense why they kidnapped the Tooth Fairy. In the book, I don't understand why they did, because it doesn't show you getting any information out of her or anything like that. They literally tie her in a room and leave her there, and that's it until the God of Hangovers and Susan come and find them. So what was the point of having them in the book? I loved it in the movie, just seemed pointless in the book. I did like how, unlike Susan's last book, which was Soul Music, if you haven't seen my review on that, that link is above me now. I hated Soul Music because it turned Susan into a groupie, which Susan is just not a groupie. I like how in this we have the badass Susan that we know and love. I don't quite know why she had to have the God of Hangovers there, why he came with her. It seemed like it was just, I don't know if it was a time period thing of Pratchett maybe being scared of just having a female character alone. I don't know. But he was funny and it was fine. But Susan is the badass one, so I much enjoyed reading this compared to Soul Music. And welcome back if you're here from the spoiler-free zone. We'll now go into my overall view of The Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. Overall, I cheated because I know the movie inside out before I read this book, so it dragged a little bit for me in the middle. However, I think if you read this without having seen the movie, the middle would not drag. So I'm going to try to ignore that. It's written really well, the characterization's great, it has some of my favourite characters and some of my favourite Pratchett quotes in this book. Really hits home for me. It is still like a lot of books from this time period. I mean, when did this come out? Let me check. How old are you? So this came out in 1996, so it is still dated with the level of men to women ratio. There's still only 2, maybe 3 women in this book compared to a lot of men. It's the time period. You guys know I try, unless they are specifically nasty, I don't mark books down for this if they're older and as long as they're not nasty. Pratchett doesn't write nastily towards women, he just doesn't write many of them, but when he does write them, he normally writes them well, and Susan in this is written wonderfully, so I'm not going to mark it down for that. It's just something to be aware of, that if you watch it and you get a bit like, ooh, it's just an older book. It was really hard for me to review this one just because of watching the movie, but I would give this book 8 out of 10 stars. I did love it and I would always recommend reading it to anyone. I am actually interested, if you have, or if you are going to read this book without seeing the movie, read it and please comment down below what you felt about the pacing and the middle section, because I do want to know. For me, it's definitely that I watched the movie, I think, but I would like to see this from the perception of someone who has not seen the movie and doesn't know this book, for how you felt about that middle section, to see if it was paced well or not. And that's it for my overview of The Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you like this video. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you want to see as soon as I upload, click that little bell down below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Tumblr. I post my bookish pictures as well as my writing tips and unboxings on there. I am so pleased I managed my goal this year of reading The Hogfather this Christmas. I've been wanting to read The Hogfather forever, but I wanted to read the Discworld series in order, so I'm so happy I made it this year. It's a relief. So I've read The Hogfather. I didn't complete my goal of reading the Memoirs of a Geisha this year, but we'll get to that. Have great holidays, great Christmas, have a great new year, and I'll see you in 2024. Bye guys!